Hello, viewers. You are welcome to this session on Fides Television. My name is Dr. Henry Chigozie Duru, and I've been called upon to speak on the topic, the gentle witness, sharing our faith and hope online, as part of our discourse in this year's World Communication Day, which has the theme, share with gentleness the hope that is in your hearts. That was the theme, or that is the theme Pope Francis actually wanted us to reflect upon in this year's World Communication Day. But as God may have it, he has departed to be with him. But the church is a continuum. We have another pontiff, Pope Leo the 14th, sitting on the chair of St. Peter. Be that as it may, I would like to first of all observe that the very topic that I have been asked to speak on actually gains its roots from that reflection, that theme of reflection, which Pope Francis actually wanted us to reflect upon in this year's World Communication Day. And that is about communicating what we believe in and what we hope in a gentle manner, in a way that does not offend the person that is listening to us, the person to whom we are targeting our communication, and that way be able to correct the person, be able to persuade the person. The person wouldn't see us as one trying to actually coerce him or her into believing what we believe in. I think as a communication expert, I believe that the Pope actually thought it through before he actually chose that very theme for this year's World Communication Day. Now, why the internet? Why was the Pope actually particular about the internet? Why didn't he just talk about sharing our hope with others? Why that internet? Why that emphasis? The reason is that that technology has actually permeated our lives in all dimensions. As a matter of fact, we live on the internet today. We live there, we study there, we work there. We even eat there. So that means that the impact of internet on our lives has become total and so far-reaching that we can no longer ignore that. So even our own Christian life should also now find expression in the internet space, because our Christian life should be integrated with other dimensions of our life. Christianity is life and life is Christianity. So if we are called to bear witness to the faith and the hope that we have, I don't know why the internet space should be excluded. I think it can never be excluded. So thumbs up to Pope Francis for actually choosing that very theme. And I believe that at the end of this year's World Communication Day, at the end of the week, we would have actually, gotten better enriched as we try to share our faith and share our hope on the online space. Now, that call to share our faith in a gentle manner, to share our hope in a gentle manner in the cyberspace is a very exciting one. At the same time, it's also challenging, because the internet has its own peculiarities. Therefore, we are talking about opportunities. We're also talking about challenges, that is difficulties regarding sharing our faith and our hope on the internet. Now, let's set the foundation. We have an obligation to share our faith and our hope on the internet. It is a very serious obligation that has its roots in the Bible and in the teachings of the church. Because as Christians, we are mandated to employ all available means of communication to share our faith, to share our hope, whether it is face-to-face communication or communication that is mediated. When we talk about mediation in mass communication, we are talking about communication that is aided, just like the communication we have on the internet. And the pronunciations of the church over the years have actually, given strength or giving voice to that biblical mandate that we should go out there and make disciples of all nations. employing all available means of social communication. We can talk about that very famous document known as Inter Mirifica, which is Second Vatican Council Decree on Media of Social Communication. There have been others down the years like Communio et Progressio, Athetis Novae. These ones were pastoral instruction on social communication issued by the Pontifical Council for social communication. So over the years, we will see that the church has been consistent in telling us actually what to do. If you look at a particular portion of Athetis Novae, you will see where the church says the church's pastoral solicitude for the means of social communication is rooted in her understanding of her evangelizing mission. The church is called to proclaim the saving message of Christ to all people in every age. That is for number 4. Then it continues, the new communications technologies, this is where the internet comes, including those which are interactive. Of course, we know that the internet is an interactive medium, and those which are not yet fully developed present fresh opportunities for communicating the gospel. So we are talking of those fresh opportunities which the online media actually presents for sharing our hope and sharing our faith. Of course, as I said earlier, there are also challenges. So why we need to share our faith and hope? Why? It's a question. Of course, it is very, very important that we communicate, to others the faith that we have in God's abiding love and God's solicitude. Of course, also to share our hope, the hope that we have in God regarding His earthly providence, as well as, the complete package, which is the salvation that we are looking towards. So why do we actually need to share our faith and hope? Number 1 is because of the worsening economic crisis globally, and in Nigeria in particular. If we look at Nigeria in the last 10 years, 2015 to 2025, it has actually been hellish, that a lot of people are now losing hope. They are actually, if people that cannot find a way to leave the shores of this country are feeling that they are doomed forever. So I think this is the time to renew our faith. It's the time to renew our hope. And as Christians, as Catholics, we should make ourselves the instruments of sharing that faith, sharing that hope. At least to see give people some meaning, modicum of meaning in life, even in the face of all these socio-economic problems. Another one is worsening conflicts and insecurity. Internationally, we have wars. We have in Syria, we have in Yemen, we have in Gaza, we have in Ukraine. In Nigeria here, we are not free from wars. We have been at war for many years now. In the north-east, now we are talking of the bandits in the northwest. We are talking of the herdsmen in north central. Even in the southeast, we have had the Niger Delta agitations that actually snowballed into armed conflicts. So, and we're also talking of crime, kidnapping. It has become a very big business in our country, in the past couple of years. So all these actually make it very, very important that we begin to renew our faith, we begin to renew our hope, and we also share our faith and hope with others in order to actually strengthen them in the midst of all these adversities. And today also we are talking about family crisis in marriages, in families. We are talking the rate of divorce today, is becoming alarming. We are about to start competing with the Western world when it comes to the rate at which families break up these days. A lot of people are in their families, they are suffering, they are having abusive marriages and all that. They require encouragement. Their faith needs to be strengthened and their hope needs to be renewed. Then we are talking of other afflictions, including from diseases, accidents, all sorts of mishaps, natural disasters. There are places that are prone to earthquakes. There are places that are prone to drought in our world and even our nation today. So all these actually justify the reason why this call to employ the internet to share our faith and hope. Now, why should we be gentle about sharing that faith and hope? Because the call is not just to share our faith and hope, but also to do that gently, in a gentle manner. When I started speaking, I mentioned the fact that you sound more persuasive when you communicate in a way that is gentle, in a way that is friendly, as against being coercive, against being arrogant in what you are doing. Pope John Paul II and eventually Pope Francis actually referred to our current world, our space, our current communication space as the new Areopagus. And that concept, was gotten from the Acts of the Apostles when Paul had to face Areopagus. Areopagus, referred to forums, places. And that came from the ancient Greece. That was where scholars, philosophers usually gathered for debates. And that was where, judicial sessions were actually being held. So when Paul came to Athens, he was worried by the level of idolatry that was existing there. So, and he was trying to actually speak to the people. Eventually, he was brought to Areopagus, where he had to engage scholars. Recognizing that they are scholars, and he didn't want to actually talk down, on them. He actually applied this principle of sharing gently. He first of all agreed with them actually that they were right to have a particular altar meant for an unknown God. He agreed with them. At least they had a common ground, which is a very fundamental, principle in ecumenism. Common ground first. What we believe, what we hold dear in common. And then Paul now told them that the God that I'm talking to you about is that unknown God for whom you have actually erected this very altar. So that is how he was able to convince them. He didn't come to argue with them. He didn't come to tell them that I know better than you, that you are worshiping useless gods, gods that cannot speak, that cannot see, that cannot hear. Rather, he started from a point of common agreement that there is an unknown entity, a transcendental entity, that is in control of this world. To that extent, you people are right. But let me now also add that it is the message of that unknown God that I'm bringing to you. That is ecumenism. That is the principle of ecumenism. We start from a place of common understanding, common belief. Now, you look at the internet. The internet presents a perfect setting for us to apply that principle. Number one is pluralism. When you are in your community, your physical community, like this owner where Fides is located, you will meet people that you live in the same environment with. Most of us are from the same ethnic group. You meet Christians, and then you will see majority Catholics. You have the Catholic communities here, those attending Mass here, those attending at St. Gabriel, and so on and so forth. But on the online space, you meet a plural setting. That's a pluralism. You can meet Muslims, you meet Hindus, you meet traditionalists, you meet Christians that are on the edge, people that don't know whether they now belong to African traditional religion or they are still Christians. You meet people that are atheists, people that are agnostic. So you meet all sorts of persons. You meet people of different political persuasions, different cultural backgrounds, different ethnicities. Now, gentility in communication becomes a cardinal principle, because you don't belong to the same religious group or the same ethnic group or the same political or you are not of the same political ideology with them. If you want to come in so forcefully, then you create a situation of debate and argument. It now becomes a battle of ego. First of all, because we are in a plural setting where we have pluralism, find area of common understanding. Assuming all of us are Christians, first of all, we all believe in God and we all believe in Jesus Christ. There may be areas of disagreement, like the court of the saints, the court of Virgin Mary, the Eucharist, and so on and so forth. We start with where we have common interest. Based on that common interest, at least even if once somebody believes in Jesus Christ, as a Catholic, Catholicism has, a rich deposit of faith that you can pick out something, even if no matter the person's denomination, something in Catholicism that you and that person shares the same understanding and the same belief. Through that way, you can gently share your faith and share your hope without offending anybody and tactically persuade that person. The another one is that on the internet space, we meet, differing conditions and experiences. You have seen people from broken homes, people that were raised at ghettos, places where morality was is so low. You see people from people who are divorced. You see, so you meet people with differing conditions, people of different experiences, people who are suffering from terminal illnesses and so on and so forth. Now it requires understanding. For instance, you are going to meet somebody who is so hungry that the person has not eaten for so many, maybe for a few days now, and then you start by telling the person about your hope and about the faith you have. Then the person will now tell you that somebody that has not eaten does not praise Jah. So, understanding that people come from different backgrounds and that people have different experiences and that people experience different conditions will now help you to tailor your message, in a way, or to tailor your message to the person's condition. If the person is hungry, first of all, start by trying to know whether you can address that. If you don't have money, you might have a way to tell the person, see what you are going to do. Please, can you speak to this person, or can we talk about it? By the time you start from that, loving platform, you are going to gently lead the person to having hope and also renewing the person's faith. The another word is that on the online space, people have this entitlement, to intellectual freedom, that they want to say whatever they want to say, that you shouldn't gag them. That is why when you come to cyberspace, I've actually noticed it. You see some people that you believe to be, you have looked at them and you see them as, people that are timid, that don't actually express themselves when we meet in our physical forum. But then they say all sorts of things. So people actually feel that this is a space where they cannot be gagged, even when they might be afraid to say such a thing when we meet on our physical forums. So by the time you understand that, you apply St. Paul principles at Areopagus, because then he knew that that place was a forum, an intellectual forum where people cannot be gagged. It was like a university. So when you see the online space, you discover that is what it is. So you have to come gently. That is where that gentility, which the Pope actually inserted in that message, comes in again. When you are talking to people who feel that they have that right, that they're entitled to their intellectual freedom to express themselves, you have to come gently. You are not talking to maybe a classroom of secondary school and primary school students where you can tell somebody, shut up, you are wrong. And then you are not speaking to your congregation. For instance, assuming you are a priest or maybe you are a teacher of any kind in the church. So you are not talking to people, because in that forum, there is already, in a forum like a church, there is already this understanding, there is one teacher and there are listeners. So the listener cannot take the position of a teacher. But the online space, it is like a discourse, a dialogue. If you speak, you must allow me to speak. Otherwise, I will feel offended. So that is where, that gentility, that sharing with gentle disposition comes in. And so, from then let's now talk about, the practical approaches. Having understood these principles, we can now end, by looking at those practical dispositions, those, practical steps, those things that we ought to be doing in order to realize that injunction, that mandate to share our faith and hope with a gentle disposition. Number one is, broad-mindedness. You need to be broad-minded. Everybody did not receive the same education with you, the same religious training with you. Some people were born in an environment where Islam, for instance, is the dominant faith. So it's, that socialization tends to form their personality and their belief. If you look at the teachings of the church, particularly on ecumenism, I think I read Ut Unum Sint by Pope John Paul II. I think it was 1988. I bought that encyclical and I read it some many years ago. He was talking about that understanding while sharing our faith. Being broad-minded, understanding that, the paths that people have taken in life is actually informed many times by the training that they had, the teachings that they had, the environments that they were actually groomed in, the families in which they were born, and so on and so forth. So that broad-mindedness will prevent arrogance. There is what you can call arrogance in a teacher or in somebody who is trying to share an idea. So by the time you understand that this person you are talking to actually has a different orientation from the one that you have, and that is not the person's fault, then that broad-mindedness will bring about tolerance, so that gently, rather than coming to tell the person that you are wrong where you are standing, you are telling the person, from where you are standing, we can talk and have common understanding. You never can tell. You can actually persuade the person to leave that place and come and join you. So that is the magic. Another one is humility in sharing. You know, at times, because we believe we have the right message, we tend to be arrogant in the way we share our message. We tend to believe that, you know, that we are the elected. You know how the Jewish people were in the biblical days? You know, they were a very proud race. You know, the Jews were even surprised seeing Christ talking with a Samaritan woman. You know, so they believed that it was demeaning, that it was infradig. So, but we need that humility. You know the way Pope John Paul II went about sharing our faith and our hope. He was the first pope that actually entered a mosque. Then he went into a synagogue to also pray. You know, so that is humility. Because in the biblical days, the days of the Old Testament Bible, you know, a rabbi wouldn't do something like that, to even stand with a Samaritan talking. You know, Christ tried to actually negate, you know, some of those cultures, you know, some of those ways of life that actually contradict sharing our faith and love with a gentle disposition. Now, another one is respectful dialogue. We don't even need to belabor that one, because the church has actually shown us the way. It is respectful dialogue that enabled Pope Pope Paul VI, that was the Pope that came after Pope John the 23, to bring the patriarchs of the Eastern churches together. I've read some of the dialogues that they had. And eventually, as you know today, since the Great Schism occurred centuries ago, the church has been divided. But through respectful dialogue, the Roman Church has been able to re-establish communion with some of those Eastern churches. And we have seen some of them, even at the Vatican, during the burial of the Pope, and even after the conclave, that even their patriarchs have been installed as cardinal bishops in the Roman Church. So it is respectful dialogue, because if there was no respect, and even at some point, Pope Paul VI even visited one of the patriarchs, forgotten that one. So that is respectful, because ordinarily we say, I'm the Pope, I'm the Vicar of Christ, I'm occupying the chair of St. Peter. You people left the fold. You should come back and beg. But application of that respectful dialogue actually helped. So that is the way we are going to share our faith and our hope in this world of adversities, where people tend to lose hope, and a lot of people even committing suicide. You know, the rate is rising. So this message is very, very relevant today. Now, another thing is avoiding what has been known as keyboard warrior syndrome. You know, when people hold the keyboard, I think that thing functions like a spirit now, or a kind of intoxication. You know, they believe that they can argue with everybody. People lack respect on social media. That is what I've actually understood. You know, once you are having your keypad, you feel you can engage anybody aggressively. But if you understand that negates the principle of gentle communication, gentle sharing of what you have. And if you also understand that it's also going to make your message not to be effective, because by the time you start your message with attack, it becomes a problem. I remember somebody who was telling us something, that was when I was an undergraduate, about how to approach people to tell them about HIV/AIDS, you know, how to avoid premarital sex, extramarital. The person now told us that if you are going for such a thing, it was not in a religious forum actually. It was a training sponsored by Family Health International. So he said, even if you're having the Bible, don't bring it out immediately, because if the person sees the Bible, you have already condemned the person. The person say, hey, they have now come to tell me that I'm a sinner, that I'm going to rot in hell. That first of all, start, you know, talking to the person as just as an ordinary human being. You know, don't capture that high moral ground to stay there and be talking down to the person. But it's by the time you now establish some kind of understanding, you know, comfort with that person, you can now quietly, that was the the word used by the doctor, quietly and stylishly, bring out your Bible. By that time, the person is no longer seeing the Bible as an instrument of condemnation. Maybe it has become an instrument of exhortation, or an instrument of teaching and correction. Now, the last one is patience and long suffering. That is another practical step that we should also start taking in order to actually successfully and effectively communicate our faith and hope in this time of tribulations. Patience and long suffering, because in the online space you are having a conversation. It's not like those persons are members of your family that you continue to live with them every day, and they are always there for you to correct. They are always, these are people that you meet whenever you come to that space, and you need to understand that you are involved in a continuous conversation, just like business people who are involved in what is known as relationship marketing. They chat you on Facebook, they will tell you about a particular product and all that. They know they might not be able to convince you that day, but they continue to maintain relationship. Some days they will just greet you without talking about their product. Before you know it, you have a relationship, and with time, that relationship will now transmute to being a client or being a customer, as the case may be. So that is being patient and long suffering. In other words, you take it as a project that I'm working on this person, I'm working on these persons. Don't say because you spoke to them, one day, and maybe they are busy, or maybe that they were not receptive, then you say that these people, in fact, they have been blinded by the devil, they have been deafened by the devil. Remember our brothers from one of the denominations who usually visit us, particularly on Sundays. They try to create relationship. And that was a very good strategy. They'll never, even when you are quarreling, I think it's something that we can even borrow from them. That's, being gentle. That's, gentle disposition in passing your message across. No matter how hostile you are proving to be, they will try to continue to engage in dialogue. While going, they will tell you, we will return. And they will return. Gradually, you are forming a relationship. They are becoming patient. They are long-suffering. They understand that principle. And I think when we look at them, we may be able to very effectively apply that principle of gentle disposition in communication, as the Pope has actually called all of us to, or rather has called on all of us to actually embark upon. So to conclude, we can actually say that the Catholic Church, at least since the 20th century, has consistently called on all of us, the faithful, whether you are a member of the clergy, or you are a religious, or you are one of the lay faithful like me, to use every means of communication available to us, available to humanity, to actually share our faith. So that is the basic thing. That is the foundation, which I also stated in the beginning of this presentation. Now, from there, we need to also understand that sharing will also be more effective. It will be more fruitful if we adopt certain principles. And one of those principles which the Pope wants us to actually reflect upon this year is the principle of gentle disposition in passing across our message, the message intended for sharing our faith and our hope. This is what we should actually do, because the world today is filled with tribulations. Look around you, in your family, in your compound where you're living, in your workplace, even while you are walking on the road, while you are doing transacting business in markets, at banks, and at every other place, you will see people that are actually suffering emotionally because of all these tribulations. Those persons are the reason this message has been given. Look at those persons, try to renew their hope, try to strengthen their faith. that is what you will do, and you do that abiding or implementing that strategy which the Pope has called on all of us to actually implement, which is the strategy of gentle disposition. When you have done this, you must have actually fulfilled one of the most important roles that we have as Christians. And on that note, I will draw the curtain on this presentation. My name remains Dr. Henry Chigozie Duru. Thank you very much for watching and for listening.
Communication, communication, communication,